Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. And this is our very first segment, and I'm excited about this. This is the man cave. And you know what? It's just like the word says. This is a cave where the men can come together. It's a platform. We can be honest and open with each other. And I got two purposes for this. The first one is a platform for guys, right? So these guys, we got a bunch of guys coming in. We're gonna be asking questions, talking about our honest opinions and thoughts about what's happening in our lives, in our churches and stuff. And this kind of allows other guys to relate, and it kind of gives that relieving feeling like oh, thank God, I am not the only one who thinks this way, right? And it gives, I believe it'll give peace and comfort to a lot of other guys too. It's gonna be a lot of fun also. And secondly, I do think it's for girls, right? Girls meaning right now we really need to evangelize more guys, but if we don't know the heart or the mind of guys very well, this is where, we make a lot of mistakes and we wonder, oh, how come there's no guys coming to this history, or how come we keep losing guys, right? So I hope this can be a very beneficial platform for both guys and girls. And let's get started. Let's do some introductions. All right. So you guys already know who I am. Let's start off with Eddie.
Hey guys, so you guys might know me from the Monday segment where I do 2G talks. So as Pastor Guy mentioned, right now I'm in Hawaii, but I was born in Korea, but I moved to the States when I was about 6, 7 years old. So like first grade of primary school, and I've been here since. And I've gone to many different churches, and I've been helping out the Hawaii church for the last 6 months.
Nice.
And I'm really excited to be here and to talk to the guys. I know Pastor Sky never edits the MSC 117.8, but maybe this will be the first segment where he has to
edits you out.
Yeah, I'm gonna
just edit Eddie out.
If this becomes too mannish, there are going to be some parts I'm going to have to edit out because of some of the things that guys say when we're together. Let's move on to Julius.
Hi everyone, it's Julius here from Melbourne, Australia. Originally from Kenya, so I'm kind of both Kenyan and Australian. And yeah, so been down here at the Melbourne Church for about 5 years. And you might know me from the Health is Happiness podcast, but although recently we've been having more doctors and other professionals doing that, which is really great. Yeah, nice to see you.
Okay, wait a second. You can't bring up Health is Happiness. We know you from Health is Happiness. We know you from Rapture Collective. Like, you got all the music coming out.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Like, you guys keep just pounding out so much music. It's awesome. I think the latest one was Fishers of Men, right? And that was like last week.
Yeah, Fishers of Men. With Tully and Sky. That was awesome.
Yeah. My favorite song so far is Grateful.
Oh, awesome.
That's my favorite song for sure. And then, of course, you guys know Rapture Collective. Either way. So there's Julius. And last but not least, we have Supang.
Oh, man. Those two had like specs and all. I don't have anything, so...
It's okay. We did this to make you look bad.
Oh, man. Yeah, so I'm Supang from Singapore, and I think that's all I have.
That's so funny. He's like, hi, I'm Supang from Singapore.
I don't have...
It's just quiet.
I have no specs, no credentials. Like, yeah. I ran 2 years in church full-time, and then now I'm learning Korean in Korea, and yeah, I have some free time. That's why I talk to Sky.
Awesome. Yeah. So this is one of the cool things about all three of these guys, and the reason why I chose them is because they're all in their 20s. And I think it's a good idea to have people that are kind of in the same area. Of course, I'm double their age, but they will be doing most of the talking, and I'll just kind of chime in every once in a while, kind of like a moderator. But I would love to hear what these guys in the 20s are thinking. And I do think we can have in future man caves, like people in their teens or people in their 30s or 40s. And I think it'll give a much better idea of the different guys in different age groups. But we're going to start off here with the guys in their 20s, and I hope that this turns out really well. All right. So let's kind of just start off with, we've all been in this history. How long you guys been in this history for?
Technically 9 years for me.
Technically?
From the start. of learning Bible study. So
Oh, okay. I meant technically like you left in the middle or something. And you're
oh
like,
no,
well, I left, and then technically, if I put those in,
some people count from passing, but I just count from starting to learn the Bible studies.
also 9 years. Okay. How long did you study the word for?
About 10 months, 10, 11 months. Yeah.
10, 11 months. Okay. Well, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's quite great.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no, wait. It was 7 months, and then I passed on the 10th month.
Oh, nice. Okay, so that's about pretty normal, about half a year. How about you guys? How long you guys been? Well, Eddie's he's second gen, so he's like his whole life, right?
Oh, I'm the youngest then. The Mangni.
You
I'm
are.
7.
Hold on, Eddie. How long you been in Providence? Like from the moment you realized, or when you're middle school, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there were various points. I think I mean, even in elementary school, middle school, we were doing a lot of things, but then like through middle school, I went through like kind of quite a few like personal difficulties, which made it kind of difficult. I think it was around like midway through high school where I had like the most pivotal transition point, where it became more about like doing it for myself. Before that, like everything is kind of done for you, and kind of done at you at times. So it was in high school where it's more like a personal decision too.
Oh, okay. So then you could say that it's been then what, 10 years?
Yeah, about 10 years.
Okay, but I still think we the moment you start not running but start doing things for church, I think that counts too. A lot of times, even when we a bunch of us come to this history for the first time, a lot of times we don't really know what we're doing. We're just kind of doing it because we need to do something, right? So you could say about 15 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the things that we did in elementary and middle school, they did provide a foundation that after, like now, when I reflect back on it, it was very helpful. But in the moment, I like, I mean, I guess this is probably one of the first shocking things from this segment. But yeah, like a lot of second gen did the same things, but actually, I want to say most of them aren't here anymore, right? So it's not to say that those things fostered the most important thing.
Right. Well, it's not that shocking. I think each person in each church can see whether they're there or not, even right now in their individual churches. But yeah, I think second generation is a big issue and a topic that should be discussed about also. Right. What about you, Sapang?
I'm the youngest, 7 years. This is my 70th of tribulation.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe I even invited you. How can we have someone who's only 7 years?
Oh my
gosh,
God.
I'm gonna make sure to avoid you for the question. You don't know anything.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stay quiet and just like I agree and I disagree. That's all I'm gonna say.
I think I've been in Providence for like 25 years now, which is probably more years than you guys have been living, right?
No way.
No?
I'm 26 this year.
Oh, okay. So I came when you were 1. Yeah. Supang, how old are you?
I'm 28.
Oh, okay. See, you're even too old for this almost.
I'm old and spiritually not mature. And
just want to let you guys know that this is going to be Supang's first and last episode of Man Cave.
Thank you for listening to me. Boy cave. Maybe I should join a boy cave, right?
Yeah, the boy cave.
Yeah. I like TikTok,
All right, so let's just talk about certain things. Let's talk about some good stuff first, right? Because I think there's a lot of great things about being in this history as being a guy. Okay. So let me ask you guys a question is, when was a time that you were like, you felt you were the closest or the community or your happiest? Like being a guy in this history. So anyone can go first. When was the point? Like I'm gonna be honest with you. One of the times that I really, really felt connected was when I first came to this history. I was like 19 years old and playing sports all the time, hanging out at people's houses. And I think a big thing for me was it was the older members, like in their later 20s, when I was 19, that they would take their time to just hang out with me. We'd go out, they'd buy me something to eat. And I felt like, wow, like that was such, like, I felt so like part of it. Like, that's one of the times that I always remember is these like older sisters in church. They'd be like, hey, I'm going to take a bunch of you guys out to eat. And, the fastest way to a guy's heart is through his stomach, right? So when I got that, I was just like, wow, like these people really care about me, that they're feeding me, kind of thing. So like that's one of the memories that I had a lot. What about
Right.
you guys?
Well, funny enough, the way I became friends with the guy who evangelized me was because he kept giving me his sushi rolls. That was the first time I had sushi in high school. Yeah, that's how we became friends. Yeah. So, you know, it is true. Food really works really well. So yeah. But for myself, like we did sports every now and then, but it wasn't as much. But I would say definitely eating after service, you know, because we had a lot of blessed family, and so they'll cook a whole bunch of food always after service, and eating together. That was always like the time I really felt, you know, quite close as a guy. It just
Oh,
really,
nice.
yeah.
And
So
this is kind of one of those, already 2 out of 4 are talking about food. And it's a big hint for everyone out there who's trying to evangelize. The key point is share your sushi rolls. All right. This is going to be the key. What about Supang or Eddie? What do you guys think? What were those moments where you really, really felt like, oh, I'm part of this?
Well, I mean, there were a lot of things while growing up. Many similar things to what you guys shared too. Like, I think it's the stuff outside of church that actually makes you bond more, for sure. I would say lately though, it's like the times when we kind of go off script for me that actually makes it feel like, you know, our faith extends beyond just the formulaic things that we do at church. Like for instance, I've been in Hawaii for the last 6 months, and one of the favorite things that we've done is like to go around the island. Like every time there's a visitor or someone coming, we like go around the island. You stop by kind of random places unplanned. Oh, and we go like swimming at someone like the really nice beaches and stuff like that. And those kind of things where it's like off, like not following a certain set schedule and doing things together with members in kind of like a spontaneous ways. Those things have been really fun and ingrained in my memory.
Sorry,
yeah.
there's a mosquito here. I gotta kill it.
Yeah, so off the
So
script,
yours,
right?
why do you think the spontaneous things make you feel more closer?
So there's actually a very specific thing I was thinking about. When like I think the way that Providence and many times it feels is like there's like a heavy emphasis on organization, and then sometimes it's like too rigid. Like so for me, one of the instances earlier this year is when we had the first 15 days of giving glory, and we were having like the Western nations giving glory, which I saw many people's faces here too from that time. And I was like watching the performances, and I was like, oh my gosh, like everything is so like it's like the same, it's like cookie cutter, like it was the same thing over and over again. So that's not a bad thing, and so I want to emphasize that it was really well organized, but it was kind of dry, right? So I think guys kind of like dryness being broken up and like things and fun things being interjected into what we're doing.
Okay, when you say cookie cutter, like all the performances were the same, or like what do you mean by that?
Yeah, there were all songs and dances, pretty much.
Oh,
They're
okay,
all
okay,
across
okay,
the board,
okay.
right?
Oh, so there was no variety. Like you would have been like, oh, someone does a magic show. You'd be like, okay, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, something like that.
Or
Or
someone does
even,
stand-up comedy, and you'd be like, oh, that would be
yeah.
really cool. Okay.
And the kind of songs were all similar too. They're very slow paced, you know, very graceful and stuff like that. I don't think there was like a lot of like fast paced, like really like upbeat music
You like the
from
fast-paced and ungraceful. Okay, that's
yeah.
cool.
Right.
Okay, but no, I agree with you though, to be honest. I agree with you too. Like sometimes when I see performances, they're it's almost like we only think of those things, singing and dancing.
It's kind of
Right?
too risky to do anything else, you know?
Yeah, that's so true. Like people
I mean,
don't take
imagine doing a
risks.
stand-up comedy in like Glory to God. It's kind of wow,
Well,
kind of hard.
when I was in LA, the crazy part was we had 2 stand-up comedians that would do like these shows.
Only in LA, right?
Yeah, when I was there when I was younger.
Yeah, I think that's a very American thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think comedy also in America is very different than other countries. Well, I know that Singapore has like stand-up comedy.
Yeah, but no one knows about them because probably not funny too.
Oh, okay.
I know it's kind of like culture have different humors, right? So
Right.
Singaporean humor and like British humor or like, you know, Korean humor is so different.
Yeah,
So,
like I know in Korea it's like all gag stuff. Like it's like a little bit situational humor, I guess, more than someone standing up there telling stories and such.
yeah, maybe the locals will get it, but you know, as an international kind of
Yeah.
dedication, then it's kind of risky, I guess, for some
Yeah.
things. But dance and songs are like, you know, it's always gracious. So
Do, 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 do. I'm gonna be on. I'm gonna tell you guys
That
this
was
too.
good.
Those the dances are so girly.
Yeah,
That was one thing for me
that
for
was
sure.
definitely the next point.
Yeah, it's so girly. Like I want to, you know, I'd rather see like people punching and kicking and breaking boards. But of course, you can't do it during like do 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 do. Like you can't be
you know,
kicking.
we should like if there's like more than 1,000 likes, we should see Sky doing it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like a lot of the stuff, I'm not gonna say it in a bad way, but it was so like in my mind when I see guys doing those dances, I've only got one word in my head, and I can't even say it right now because I might get in trouble. I'm just
Censor,
like going,
censor.
oh my gosh, that is so right. And but I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I still like respect it as in they're giving glory.
Yeah.
Like they're giving glory, but to me, I was just like, man, like that's so girly. I don't know what else to say, but I and it's probably possible because we have a lot of girls that make the dances.
Yeah.
Like, why do you think so many things are like so fem? Oh, yeah, actually, you know what? Let me ask Supang first to that question about what's your
Right.
best time. Yeah.
I mean, you could just skip me. It's fine too. I'm just
Well,
kidding.
I was gonna
No,
skip
I'm
you
just
until I
joking.
saw a tear come out of your eye. Like,
Right, right.
"Oh,
I was controlling my tears. Like, oh no, he forgot about me. I'm just gonna balance out all the physicality here and say that, you know, it was, but it's true. I think the first part of coming to Provi and when like the words are so fresh, and then I don't know, like especially coming from like the former faith, like those were the happiest days of my life because like every day was new, you know, and you know, like, and I think also because there was fire, so you know, I went to like run and evangelize with my brothers.
mm,
Yeah, those were memorable. And then like, yeah, I enjoyed those days a lot. I think when I had more time also to just focus on learning new things, and also it was really new at that time, so it was really interesting. And then yeah, but along the way, of course, you know, it tapered down a bit. But
right.
I'm still happy that I can run, and yeah, that's the spiritual side of me. Yeah, I'm not a food guy, or yeah,
Really? Like
yeah,
you
I'm not.
felt it didn't help at all.
I just live, you know, um, to I don't know. I eat to live, right? I don't live to eat. So you know,
Oh, so you're
it's
just making fun of all three of us. Okay, that's fine.
yeah.
That's fine.
I'm.
Yeah. I'm not like you, doofs, that like want to just eat.
Maybe my managers didn't buy me a lot of food. That's why.
I
So
think
I
so.
don't
I think
know.
you're deprived in
Yeah.
Singapore.
Please send me, you know, my Patreon is, by the way.
Oh, shots fired. Okay, so then actually that brings up a really good point is what did you guys like think of the word?
Oh man. Dude,
Like at which
it's
stage?
so
Like
good.
at the first stage?
Very
Just when you
start.
first started learning.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely new, right? But as in former faith background, and like naturally, I was already kind of inquisitive, and you know, I was kind of curious to know
Right.
of these questions. But you know, you kind of hide them, you know, somewhere because you just didn't think that there would be answers to them. Because
Right.
for my background is more of like, you would know when you go to heaven. So like, I just kept it. But then when, you know, I was approached like on the street and someone asked me these questions, and I was like, oh, actually it makes sense. And I was just curious. And yeah, so that's why to me, that's like my highlight, because I felt like every day I was learning something new.
Right.
It's like mind blowing.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me reframe this question because I think this will be a more important question that will separate us, like the genders wise, right? Is when you heard the word, was it more because of the feeling, or was it more because it was like it made sense? Was it powerful to you because there was a feeling that came in, or was it powerful to you because everything just fit? What do you guys think?
It's more like it's not the feeling, I guess. It's more of like it's the question and the answer, and it's logical to me. And I was thinking from the point like, oh, I could teach this to my friends, and like,
Mm.
you know, I could be somebody that is mentor to others if I learn properly. So that was kind of my mindset when I came in. Yeah. So it helped me a lot. And the for my lecturer, he gave a lot of like question and answers, and very logical and like systematic approach, which I appreciated it a lot. That's for me. Yeah.
Well, for me, it was actually both. It started off being really curious, and before I kind of like I saw like in high school, I used to like watch debates, you know, some apologetics or like debates between like atheists and Christians, and I was like, you know, I was quite into learning about apologetics, and so I was always thinking about, you know, how I could answer these kinds of questions. So while learning the word, a lot of these things were answered, but along the way, I think midway, I could literally feel like my body on fire, and like spiritually, I felt really alive just listening to the word. And like, that was like a feeling that I really struggled to ever to achieve in my life as a Christian. But listening to the word, like there was a time I was listening to some revelations too. I had to sit down because my heart was burning so much. Just like the word was just like setting me on fire physically. Like,
Wow.
and it was really powerful. It was, I think, because it was around the time of Rapture 2014. So yeah, I could really feel it as well.
Wow. What about you, Eddie?
Yeah, I would definitely say the logical part, but it's like what Julia said too. And I think the main thing that I was thinking, like recently I rewatched Inception, and you know, like in Inception, what they say with like how they try to incept ideas into people's brains, right? Is like you can't really use negative emotion. You have to use like a more positive emotion. It's like more like powerful to do so. And like the word that they go for is like catharsis, right? So when you like listen to the word that so logically makes sense, it's kind of like straightening out your life that was kind of like disorganized and dysfunctional in some way, or something didn't make sense. And because it makes so much sense, it produces like a very, very positive, like I think calling it an emotion, calling it a feeling might not feel like it's like the entire thing, but it's like your life starts to make sense, right? And so when I was like learning the word, I think, you know, around high school is when I started learning it for myself. It didn't start with the 30 principles because, you know, I already had learned that before when I was younger, but it started with more like listening to the messages on my own. And then when I went to college, I studied like political philosophy because, you know, I grew up in California. It's quite it's quite blue here, so you know everyone's very like politically liberal, and this kind of like anti-religion. So I was like, okay, like when I went in freshman year into university, I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn what you guys purport to be the truth, and I'm gonna refute it by like kind of like dissecting it and proving it to be untrue, sort of thing. And it was kind of crazy my freshman year when I was like studying all of these philosophies, both Eastern and Western. Something actually mentioned like every single one of those philosophers in the message. Like the week that I was studying it, he would bring it up, and then he would like in one sentence explain why this way of thinking doesn't make sense. So I think the big thing, like there's a Canadian psychologist I was following for a while, and I think many of the guys might know him too. But one of the things he says, like he's never seen someone in his practice successfully bend the like kind of warp the fabric of reality and get away with it, right? Like you know, you're responsible for the things that happen in your life, and there's never been anyone who's successfully gotten away with doing something that is wrong, either wrong to themselves or just like wrong in some way, shape, or form, even if they are trying to mask the fact that it's wrong. And yeah, when you look out into the world and when you look at yourself too, and just what's going on around you too, and you can see in each person's life the thing that's causing them problems, the things that aren't making sense. And the way to resolve those problems for each person, yourself included, in this cathartic sort of way was through the word. So I don't know.
Wow. I don't understand the answer to the question. I'm like, what? It's like, well, the catharsis. I was like, wait. So, but ultimately, you are saying that you have to bring order to it first in order for you to start feeling something.
It's like it's like finding the way, like you found the truth sort of thing. So
Right.
it's like it's a logical thing.
Right. Like I think even for me is I never felt until I understood. Like what do you call it? I didn't feel anything like the fire until I like it made sense to me.
Oh, right. Wow. It was opposite for me. Like
Really?
the things that there was many things that there's also a bit of a language barrier as well.
Mm.
But there was many things
Oh, wait. What do you mean by language barrier? Like
At that time, right? Not now.
language barriers and in when I was being taught, like English was not the first language of the person. So
of the person teaching you. Oh, okay. I thought you just became really good at English all of a sudden at this point. Like, oh, I couldn't understand English because what did they speak in Kenya? It's English, right?
Oh, no. He was Korean in Australia. Yeah, but
Oh,
as
okay. But in
so
Kenya, English is your main language.
we have both English and Swahili. So we
Oh,
speak.
nice.
So both of them are spoken in daily life.
Oh, okay.
So
I think that plays a huge role, though. If the person teaching you their main language isn't like the language they're teaching in, that plays a huge role.
Yeah, it does. And still, even after that, those things that I needed to really relearn, think to be able to understand completely and accept. So, because all these things there were some things that I had trouble yet accepting or understanding fully. The Holy Spirit working upon me and feeling the fire of the word compelled me that this isn't something not ordinary, and I need to learn everything until the end before.
Oh, wow.
So having that experience early on led me, I'm onto something here. And so like I was all through the time I was learning, I was having that conversation with Jesus. Is this true or this is not? And having that faith and having that working of the Holy Spirit upon me made me stay despite the things I had not yet accepted, to learn, to like keep learning until the very end. And then I understood.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I think that's I think that reminds me of something that Sunseem said a while back. He's like people in the foreign countries who can't listen directly to the word, like the Holy Spirit will give them like 7 times more grace. Yeah. I think that's I think there's no choice in that matter, because you can't hear directly from exactly in Korean and stuff, and that plays a huge role. So you guys have all been in this history for 7 to 10, 15 years, whatever it is, right? And what just in terms of guys, when you look at the males for your entire time from the beginning until now, what has been your experience? Has it been like, is it getting like, are there less guys coming, more guys coming? Is it getting, I'm not sure what the right word to use is. Is it getting weaker or stronger, right? With the guys and how strong the guys are becoming in faith? Or like, what do you guys feel when you look at the past years you've been in this history? If you want, I can go first, because I'll just say that I feel more community back in the past. And as it's come to this point, I feel that there's a small group of the males, guys, that have gotten stronger, like a very, very small group. And generally speaking, it doesn't get much like more like, oh, the guys are together and they're more powerful and stronger. And it feels like it's a little bit on the other side, where guys are struggling more and guys are going through more difficulties, especially they got to get jobs, they're getting married and all these other different things like that. So that's what my feeling is like.
Well, when I came in, the narrative was already that guys weren't doing well, So it's like, you kind of believe it in that this is the default settings.
Right.
So like, I mean, I was kind of like, I mean, my personality is more of like, I like to challenge things. So like I made it a point to like try, to do things differently, and that actually propelled me to run, right? So I would think that perhaps some of the smaller group of guys that ran is because like, they saw that the situations, it's like, oh, we need to do something. And then, but the general guys, it's not like their faith were not doing well. It's just more of like they were busy doing the things. So I do see like two sides of things, but then I realized that I should change the way that I saw the situation. And then that helped me actually to evangelize better, because I realized that there's not just one type of guy, right, in Providence. Although like maybe there's a kind of general type of guy, I guess. But for me, I think, it helped me a lot as I ran from the start, looking at that.
That's a big question. Like, have you guys all heard that before? Like, oh, guys are so weak.
To be honest,
I mean, they don't say that, right? But you kind of like, oh, guys' department need help, and why there's so little guys? Like, there's not enough male leaders,
Right.
And then the kind of the reason why I feel some of the guys they also burn out is because there's really not many guys, right? And they kind of take on a lot of roles naturally, and it's kind of they at that moment they feel good because, oh, I'm getting responsibilities, I'm being challenged, I see the reward, and then they go forward and forward. But then perhaps the support is not enough, and then they start feeling a bit difficult. But the only reason they are holding on is because it's responsibility, and so they get drained a lot of energy. And then sometimes what I see is that a lot of guys who ran really hard at first, they don't run at all now. Right. It's not that faith's not good. It's just that.
Are you talking about me right now?
Yeah, Sky, it is.
Okay, because
I just felt only
that
drink coffee.
Crushing my heart.
You only drink coffee and post on Instagram now, right?
Wow.
Oh, you got me.
Wow.
And justifying your
oh gosh. That's why I'm doing this. So I feel better that I'm doing something.
Yeah, we are managing Sky now, actually.
Yeah, I think you guys are managing me.
Man cave only for Sky.
Yeah. What about you guys? What are you guys thinking? Oh, I think they're processing how to say it carefully.
Well, I mean, it's. I mean, like generally, I definitely feel that there has always been that kind of like almost stereotype or right around guys. But I'm trying to think about the last like 25 years, what it's been like. Because generally, I think I agreed with what was said too. I've never felt like it was like an explicit limitation. Like I wanted to challenge it too. Like I think my whole life I wanted to challenge that too. There was never a time where I was like, oh, like guys can't do well. That's like kind of like a weird assumption to have when I know that guys can do well. And I think everyone has seen that too. So I think there's so many different factors that play into why that is. And I know it can easily kind of turn into like a blame game. But then I think it is useful to have a conversation where we are kind of addressing like the bottlenecks of why it isn't working. And I'm sure each person like has specific bottlenecks that come to mind.
Right. Well, for me, at least here in Australia, they I haven't had the situation where I felt that, even though there was very few guys too, compared to like other places too, I think more than compared to America, but there's not the feeling that there was not a feeling of being looked down upon for not doing well. There was just a feeling of like, oh, they just each of us are in our own corner, in our own churches by ourselves. There's like we're kind of scattered. So it's just few of us. And so I was kind of just wondering to myself, and I'd ask sometimes some people, "Oh, why is this so few guys in Providence when I came?" I was like, "Where are the guys?" So, like, and for me, it didn't. It just seemed like that was just the default, given that oh, damn, caught it.
Yeah.
Pascal just caught a mosquito, I think.
Yeah.
So for me, the way I thought about it was, like since most of the leaders who already came, like overseas to missionize, most of them were female. So automatically, then more females will be evangelized, at least here in Australia. But I didn't know it was a global thing, like Providence thing. So
Like a pandemic.
And like a pandemic of there's guys all over around the globe, because I thought, oh, Japan looks pretty solid, or Taiwan, so I just thought, oh, it's probably because of that. And so automatically, of course, more girls have been evangelized because there's more female leaders already. So I never felt that limitation. I just felt like, oh, we need to just try and see what happens. I didn't think it was a problem until starting to learn more that, okay, it's more systemic.
I thought you're going to say, I didn't know it was a problem until I came to this segment right now.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then here's the thing. If we do think, we do know all around the world, for sure, it's a problem. There's not enough guys. I don't think even the girls, everyone is going to agree with this 100%. There's just not enough guys. And, it becomes more and more prevalent when, like when the blessing comes, there's just not enough guys.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is, right? So, the one thing that Julius did bring up is like, hey, all the leaders are mainly, all the people coming over are all girls. So it's just kind of common sense that more girls are going to be evangelized than guys. So we got to kind of look at that equation and say, okay, so then what would we need to change in order to make it more guys come? Or what can we do to get more guys to come?
Yeah. Well, I think there's been a lot of improvement, at least here in Australia. But the first thing I always thought was that we need to make this church gender neutral. Like, I need to come into this church and not feel like like this is a space where that is not for females.
Okay, so we need to become non-binary. Okay, that makes sense.
Like
unisex, yeah. Like there shouldn't be glitter on the wall, for example.
Hey, you know what? That is a big thing where, like, if decorations are done too girly.
Yeah, yes. Like if I bring my male friends here, I will lose respect. I thought like this in sometimes.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't help when like the songs is like, oh, Bride of Providence, right? It's like everything is like, well, the terms we use are generally just more feminine.
Right.
But there's nothing wrong for those who understands like where it's coming from. Yeah, but yeah. Decorations, I don't know. I know some guys who like pieces though.
That's fine. That's fine. But if you can like it, but it's just like, let's say them bring
maybe like the guy side,
yeah, more guys.
Legos, coffee. I don't know.
Did you just say the guy side is Legos and coffee?
Yeah, I don't know. Games,
do you know guys Fortnite. Very well?
Like I always thought, like, what if we in that sense, let's say there was lots of guys and we decided for decorations, we had like paintings on the wall of an angel killing Satan and chopping their heads off.
Oh man, I would dig that. I would blood, guts, and the gut and the blood. The painting would go all the way to the pulpit, and then the person at the pulpit would be preaching,
like the red carpet. It's the blood of Satan.
Because here's the thing. One of the people asked me, like, remember when they were talking a lot about what heaven looks like, and then there's this big building the size of a heart, whatever. I was like, going, what if I want a gun? Like, I'm a guy. I don't want a heart. Like, who wants a heart-shaped building? I don't want that.
No, but
Oh,
this
it looks like a flower. I'm like, I don't want a
But your
flower
gun will
building.
shoot
Give
like
me a gun
glitters.
building. Give me like a super strong canine that's like biting Satan's head off. Like that. Like, I would prefer that and say that's cool.
Yeah.
But I think that's so poignant too, because I was like, back when I started college, that was when all those revelations were coming out about what
Yeah.
heaven's like and Golden City is like. And I remember like we would listen to those on like Friday. It was like a required meeting we were having every Friday.
Right.
And like a couple were about like, oh, what kind of clothes your spirit wear in heaven? And then like they were like drawings of it. And I remember sitting through like the hour and a half long revelations being like, what is this? I do not want to be here for this. I was grateful that we have that information, and I know some people will find it useful, but I was like, man, I could go my whole life without ever thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of like that. That doesn't make me want to go to heaven.
Like, oh, paradise sounds better,
A
right?
building, and in this building, it's like pink and light blue, and it's sparkling, and I'm just like, well, can I have a gun that shoots something and kills something inside heaven? Like, I want something that's, for me it was just way too not masculine.
Well, but the saving grace was like they told us you can have what you like in heaven. So I just like reasoned that the artists, like, they were just females, right?
All right. So then
they were just drawing.
What kind of building would you want, honestly? Like, I'm making fun. I'm joking when I say a gun and stuff like that. But what kind of design would you really want?
I don't know. Like, I'm more like minimalist, nature, animals, maybe my dogs, my cats.
Oh, okay.
Kind of like that, yeah.
So idol worship. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah,
idol worship. That's great.
Like my computer games, Fortnite, and
because for me I find like even some of the buildings we see in this world right now, like some of them are awesome. Like the way they just like design these buildings, it's like, whoa, that is an amazing structure, right? I would think more to it's the biggest or it's the tallest, or as a guy, as I think, I care about which one's taller. I care about which one has more rooms or has a bigger bed or like that type of thing. So for me, that's why same thing that Eddie said is I wasn't really like inspired that there is a building that's the shape of a dress. And it totally didn't inspire me. I was like, what? Right? Just like, I don't, it doesn't make me like feel like, okay, I'm going to go evangelize right now. It doesn't give me that feeling. Yeah,
I think all of these things are like it's explicitly showing like the psychology behind it, like the male psychology, and then also it's important to know like both how guys think and girls think, which is something I think throughout like growing up in Providence, and not just Providence, like in the world too. I think like we're even seeing like in the world is coming to a head too. Like understanding each other's psychology, I think, is super important. I think there were many times where that wasn't really done properly. Like, I think there's ways to leverage. I know certain countries across the world, in Providence, they're like trying to use like, female leaders and stuff for male evangelism too, and stuff like that. And, there's like appropriate ways to, to do it and to leverage it correctly. Like, if people are able to understand guys well, I think it would be fine. Like the way that you evangelize them and manage them and integrate them into the church. Like if I had to think of like, I mean, like the decorations thing, it is a big thing. It is one big thing. Cause and it's not just like for guys, but like for anyone, when you walk inside, like whatever respective church you're going to, if it feels like it's well decorated in a way that like, makes sense to your mind. Like you said, even when we go outside and see the buildings in the world, there's some that seem like they're designed really well and others that seem like they're not designed very well. Like in San Francisco, when we were younger, we had a lot of arts majors who went to like the art universities around school. So during that time, the church was so well decorated, and not in like a super girly way or like a super male way. Like neither. It was just well decorated.
Right.
But eventually we took it all down, and I didn't know that the some of the leaders at the time didn't like the way that it was decorated and stuff. But it was visually nice. And, over the last few years, I've visited like many of the churches here in like the US. And I was like, oh, I think we could decorate better. Like we have people who are capable, who can make this place like where when people step in, like even from the world who are unaffiliated with church, they could be like, wow, like this is, well put together sort of thing. I mean, not that that's the most important thing, but it is part of our psychology to think about that kind of stuff.
And when I'm speaking about the decorations as well, that's just like a kind of an example. Just like it's more about the atmosphere of activity being tilted too much to one side. Yeah. Which is but naturally that's how it's going to be, since like the majority of the people in the church are female. So of course it's going to tilt more feminine.
Right.
But if we're more aware of it, then I think we can make improvements. And like they've been there've been great improvements in that sense, at least over here in Australia. I feel very comfortable these days at church, so it's not really that much of an issue much. But yeah, in the past, especially in early days, the poses, dances, some of the songs I was singing, and then halfway I would just stop singing. And
you should make like man versions
song.
of the song.
And
you
it was
manify
not,
it,
yeah. And it's not just being like trying to be, I'm a man, I can't be singing this. It just like naturally didn't like it. It just,
I think there's that one thing you did bring up is like being gender neutral. Like if I look at, when you go to Korea and you see the churches, they're just really nice. Guys and girls will both look at it and say, oh, this is a nice church. They'll see it as a church. And there's no like it's too masculine or too feminine. It's just nice, right? It looks like a church. You don't need to go anything beyond that. Yeah. And I can understand something really, really feminine if it was a special performance, but not the general public kind of thing. Because, it makes sense. If it's a special performance, they do it the way they want.
Yeah.
But if it's like public, it's like the service. I think that's where we have to kind of think about, like when I look at when I was in Australia, I went to Planet Shakers, I went to Hillsong, just to when you visit the churches, the music's not masculine or female. It's music, and everyone just enjoys it together. There's nothing funny about it. There's nothing weird, like, oh, that's kind of weird. It's just good music, and everyone enjoys it. And I think that's kind of like my feeling of what you meant by gender neutral.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really big point. And I'm not sure where it came from though. How it became so like pushed to one side. Maybe it's what Supang said. It's because it's like the time of brides.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a deliberate thing. Like the females get it together and say like, let's make the lives of guys miserable.
Oh no, I think that's
like,
true.
Like the male privilege, we suffered in history, and now it's time for us to rise. In the times of brides. I don't think they did that. But I guess the terminology is used like brides. So naturally, even the guys kind of felt like, oh yeah, we should just use these things. I mean, I know guys that like these things, no problem. But I think, maybe sometimes you just have to balance it. And then,
And I agree, like, it's no issue if like these guys who like to participate and do this. I don't think that's an issue at all. I think it's just more if you're trying to make it more accessible to everyone. If it's in the middle, then everyone can sort of be easily involved. Like,
I'm just thinking, but maybe sometimes it's because none of the guys want to decorate. So only the females are decorating.
True. That is actually, that's a very, very
so actually maybe the guys just need to step up also and to decorate the church more. It's probably one of the solutions. But
do you really think that like for instance, just because a guy doesn't want to decorate, because I think some guys shouldn't decorate because they just be terrible at it. You know what I mean? Like some guys shouldn't. They might not have that artistic or the eye for it.
Right.
But when there's decorations, there's got to be someone approving it.
Because even in the Christian, like if I just say Christian churches too, like I never think anything of the decorations at all. They're done, and a lot of times they are done by the females too. I noticed
But
that,
they're like all professional.
yeah.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, let's do it pink. Oh, let's have brides in dresses, like, that are moving like a procession towards this, or, oh, let's put like, sparkly things on the wall. Like that's something that I look at as more someone's personal decoration more than professional. That's my feeling.
I do think there's like, there's truth to everything that was said too. Like even like guys not wanting, not even just in terms of decoration, like not wanting to do certain things. Because I've seen a lot of times, not just in Providence, but just in general too, that a lot of times girls are willing to do things that guys just don't really care about. And then so when that happens, they have a tendency to just do it in their own image. So, you like Sufang said, like in that situation, you can't really, say anything bad because no one's willing to do it, so these girls were willing to do it, so that happens too. But I think one other thing I've really seen, and this isn't just a gender thing, it's also between like the same gender and stuff like that too. A lot of times there's a lot of misunderstandings, and I think that's been like common like throughout the entire time I've been in Providence too, and it extends way beyond just like things like decorations, but the praise songs thing too was definitely true. There's like certain praise songs where you're like sitting there singing it. I've had the same thing that Julia said, where you're like singing it and then you just feel disconnected from the song like halfway through it, and you're like, what am I singing? So that's definitely happened too. But I think even more deeper stuff, like when this whole topic came out, there was like something that actually like one of our female like headquarters leaders told me, which I thought was really deep. And I was like, wow, this person understands like male psychology really well, at least in this one regard, right? Because I hadn't heard someone explicitly say this before, but she said that in her like whole time, she's learned not to, well, she said it in Korean, but she said, I learned not to touch a guy's pride.
Yeah.
And that was a really deep thing, because I think one misunderstanding is like the ways that a lot of times that like girls can communicate. They do things in a way that would touch each other's pride, and even guys' prides too. And I'm not saying that this happens in all circumstances, but this is like one fundamental difference, I think. I mean, even girls too. You don't necessarily like it when someone touches upon something that you're like against your pride, right? In Korean, like your 자존심, right? Like how you feel about yourself, if someone's making you feel less confident about it. But I think some of the natural conversations that we have sometimes do things in ways that make guys feel less confident or less I don't know what the right word is, but I think this is a big thing growing up, especially because I saw it in a lot of like SS, especially because S's are even more emotional, right? Like kids are more emotional. So, and it's not just from women; it's from like older guys too. It's especially from the parents. Like you'll say the thing that the kids are most sensitive about, and I think it extends to guys a lot too. A lot of the times, like they'll say the one thing that maybe the guy's a little bit more sensitive about, and then that would lead to big problems too.
Well, have you guys ever had that experience where you feel like because this is not so much about this what we're talking about now is not like, oh, these girls always do this to us. It's just more of understanding the guy's mind. So we're just giving some examples and such. And I don't want the girls out there to feel like, oh, like all these guys are doing are bashing girls. And it's not about bashing the girls. It's more of, this is kind of just understanding. Like, this is what we're going through. These are some of the things that I don't think would help a guy at all. Like, one big thing for me when it comes to a guy that I saw a couple of times is if I've seen female leaders rebuke a guy in front of everyone.
Oh yeah.
Like that is like the worst thing you can, like, to crush a guy's pride. Like I don't think you should do it in front of anyone like that. But when particularly I've seen it happen where they do this to a guy and then they completely are just so upset they don't want to do anything at that point. But have you guys had that experience where you just feel like your pride was cut?
Actually, for me, thankfully not.
I was going to say something racist, but I'm going to hold back.
some reason I think I know.
But like I said, yeah, this is definitely not like against the woman thing. Yeah, it is just helping to explain like some of the guy psychology. I think one thing, and this has to do with like even rumors and stuff too. I remember when I was in high school, and I've told I might have told Sky this story before too, like because I was like interested in a career in like more legal, like political stuff, even at that point. So one of the pastors, he offered to take me to go visit a senator, like a U.S. senator, who something he was going to evangelize. And so I was like, oh yeah, that sounds cool. So I'll go too. And then when I was there was a leader who I had never met before, like very first time meeting them. And I'm good with this person now. Like I really like this person, and this person treats me really well too. But this was my first time meeting them. And I remember like as a high school student or like a late middle school student, like the first thing that this leader said to me was like, hey, I heard like you have a lot of girlfriends or something like that. And then I was just so shocked because I was like, I don't know this person. And there's no one at my church who like knows anything about my personal life. So this is just a rumor, right? Coming out of like out of nowhere. So I think like that might be a little bit different from Pride, but it did the same thing. I was like just so like I think shocked, and it was kind of like just out of the blue. But I think it that is kind of like a wounding the pride sort of moment, right? It's like saying that I'm not doing well, especially from someone I don't know, right? And they said it in kind of a casual way. So I think this is a big thing too. Like they said it in a casual way. So she wasn't intending to say it in a way that was supposed to be like hurtful. It was just like it was just a passing comment sort of.
Unless she's super evil.
What's her name?
Whoa. I came a little bit scared the way you said that.
I'm just joking. No, but
we're all joking.
Like what Eddie said, like I don't think that's a guy problem. Even if like you were a female, and then it would still hurt you as much, right? But I guess maybe guys be hurt a little bit more. I don't know, because I mean sometimes I also do hear like comments like, oh, guys have egos, right? Which I think is kind of true. Like we keep our egos and stuff, but sometimes I feel that becomes like the only reason why we are. It kind of like the easiest way to classify why there are problems, and say, oh, because it's an ego problem and stuff, which is not entirely wrong sometimes because it's true, but maybe it's just like a big stereotype that sometimes doesn't create useful conversations for that. Yeah. So yeah, but I think both ways we have to try to understand each other. Maybe try to understand like the girls, like, oh, what they try to achieve, but also maybe we have to like tell them how we really feel, but we don't, right? Because we just maybe just hide after a while because we don't want to confront it. Yeah. Which confrontation is something that I feel is very hard for guys to do with girls, because every time like when I become a bit confrontational, but not in the intent to be confrontational, just like I'm stating facts, right? In my opinion,
right?
Then it seems as though like, oh, why was I targeted towards somebody, for example, which I didn't have that intent. And then after a while, it becomes like muscle memory to me. And then I just feel like, oh, I don't really want to talk about it, because every single time when I voice my opinion, I feel like I'm being misunderstood more. So it becomes like, I'd rather just keep it in myself. Yeah. And then don't talk about it, because actually it brings much more harmony in what I thought at the time. And then over time, it drains me more. And then, yeah. So I guess, yeah, like what Eddie said, it's a lot of misunderstanding. Yeah.
Do you think it's partly because of the power structure in churches? Because there's so much power at the top? Well, I'm not sure about the power is the right word, but it seems like sometimes there's not enough discussion, and it's more of, hey, some team said this, let's go. But then there's no discussion, or the leader says no, so we're not going to do it, kind of thing. Because if you had something to say, but they cut you down, or they don't agree with you and say, oh, it's just your ego or something along that line, then it feels like, oh, that's the answer. And then we just kind of move on, right? Which for us is like, for a guy, if you cut the pride, then it's like, well, I don't want to talk to you again about this. And Like there's no point of talking to you kind of thing.
I don't know. I don't know whether it's about like, I think it's not like those big things where like there's already a direction. It's like, okay, you have to do this, because generally when those things come, I guess, and my experience is that the leaders do explain as much as possible.
Right.
Yeah, but it's more of like when there's like personal confrontation, or like working together in like a small group or like a project or an event, and then there's disagreements, right? And they ask you for opinions. But this is the part where I learned a lot of how to communicate with girls, because
Right.
I have no ill intent at all
Right.
to say anything negative about, or maybe I just disagree. For example, I just disagree with that idea, but not with the person, right? But the idea of the person. It's seen as though as it was confrontational. And then when I was approached, which I agree that maybe, the tone and the way that I should have brought across should be changed. But then, yeah, sometimes it becomes like, oh, every single time when I do something, I felt like I'm wrong. So
Right.
it kind of tricks you into thinking, so am I really the problem? Or it's like the person too, or, so after a while, there was a period of time, I just didn't really want to talk about it. And then I just avoided it because it's just more convenient for me. Yeah, which created, I guess, more problems. So I had to learn a long way. And, so that's the experience for me.
Yeah, that's a good, that's a really good point. I like what you put up is not only do, as this segment is not only about people understanding guys, but then it's also, we have to understand how to talk to girls too, because we're just so different. And that's a great point is, if we talk to a girl like we talk to a guy, then, you could see more problems happening.
Yeah, so like I try not to adopt the victim mentality.
Right.
Where it's like a guys versus girls thing.
Right.
Because if I had that, and then every single conversation would be like a battle, and then there will be no good that comes out from that. So I feel like the best thing that all of us can have is like, okay, we try to judge other by our intents instead of what we actually see, which is hard, right? But generally for me, what helped is that I do see that everyone in Providence, as much as I want to believe, I do believe this also, have good intents, right? It's just that the way that we communicate and the way that they were taught, or like the females were used to, is like that. And for me, maybe they don't have much, or maybe I'm also, it's not just guys, but it's just me. You get what I mean? Sometimes it's not about guys. Sometimes it's also about you personally. It's different.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. Oh, go ahead, Julius.
No, I'll just well, I think a big thing about that is being able to have the conversation openly without like you said, without assuming the worst, or bad intent from each other. Really important, because without talking, we can't really understand, or openly we can't really understand each other's point of view. So definitely I think or this kind of thing even helps to say openly, while at the same time seeking first, I think understanding their point of view as well first, and then being able to communicate yours is very important for enabling us to really evangelize guys, because already Providence is already tilted in one way, so we need to work together anyways,
right?
And that's so yeah, because it can get really emotional, you can get really defensive very, very quickly, these conversations in both sides. But if we start the conversation first, stating that the intention, why we're having these conversations is because we want to do this, want to achieve this, and then giving each other benefit of the doubt is a really important when you're doing this. So that's just what I wanted to say, because at least from my end too, I have noticed, because our guys are sometimes a bit more direct too, so that the end goal is not achieved because the manner of communicating is not ideal for certain people. So if you're too direct sometimes.
Mm.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is that I think being able to, like the way Supan was thinking about, or how thinking about himself and thinking about, oh, what is it that I could change, is also really important about talking about, because at least that's something you can control.
Right.
Yeah. And not only talk about one side. Yeah.
All right. So I think maybe, what about for you guys right now? If you guys can say, you know what, this is one thing that I realized about talking with females, that, I realized about, I got to be like this more, or I got to be like this more. What would you say would be one of the key things that you realized after talking to, females a lot more, like, oh, I got to talk like this better, or I got to understand this better? What do you think would be the big one for you guys? All right, so no one realized anything about talking to girls, so we'll move on to the next one.
No, because we don't want to be the one like, oh, we talk to a lot of girls,
Well, we can't help it, because in leadership it's mainly girls. Like, there's more
Right.
females than males, right? So that's something we can't help. So yeah,
I think what I learned the most, right? I have to agree. I have to like acknowledge that I learned is that they are better communicators generally, like just generally speaking.
right.
And so like I think from the guy's point of view, we could kind of like, okay, there's things to learn from there. And so I try to go in with the mentality that, yeah, like the way that I communicate to guys, even though I'm a guy, doesn't mean that I know the best how to communicate to guys only.
Right.
And in fact, there are many times that even my personal lives, right? My personal life is that guys generally open up more when there's females.
Right.
So it's maybe because they are females, maybe it's because of the way that they act, maybe it's the way that they can ask questions.
Or they're pretty.
So like, yeah, maybe that's like 90% of the time, right? Yeah, wow. You're gonna get me canceled, man. Oh my. By the way, yeah, we're just joking. So yeah, but I think one of the things I learned is that the way that they give comments, usually they know how to do it in a way that is softer than guys.
Right.
Generally, right? It's like it's not sugarcoat. Sugarcoat sounds very bad, but it's that the way that they say things first and then they bring the point in, which is kind of interesting because sometimes I find it very good, but some guys find it very fake. So it's really dependent on people to people, right? So that's why sometimes you see certain leaders, certain female leaders being able to connect to guys very well, but that female leader will not communicate with other females well because maybe she's direct. But then there's some guys that like the softer approach. You get what I mean? So I think it's hard, but I feel that generally speaking, what I've learned is, yeah, like females tend to know how to be softer in the way that they push certain things, which is actually a good way to talk to guys sometimes, right? But I'm just saying that out there that sometimes certain guys don't like it. And then they find it very fake, not genuine at all. And they rather you be like direct. But for me, then I think we should be consistent. So if you want to be direct, then if someone tells you directly, then you shouldn't be also like, hurt when the person be direct to you. So I think it goes both ways. You have to be consistent with what you want and what you hope to be managed by. So that's what.
And I also think, to add a little bit to that, I do think there's a difference, like the guy's expectation, because they're a female, they'll react differently because they are female. Because when the way guys interact, like right now, we're just cutting each other up, laughing and joking around, and we're okay with it. But I think it would be different if there was a bunch of girls doing it.
I'm gonna complain. I'm gonna report to my leader.
It's okay. This is your last segment anyway, so
right. I'm gonna write. I'm gonna stop my Patreon.
Yeah, it's just in our heads. I think that's the big thing, is when we talk to girls, there's a different expectation than when we talk to guys. And
it brings me to one point, right? Because like guys, we like to banter.
Yeah.
And we like to like shoot insults to each other
Yeah.
because it's all love, right? Sometimes even though we mean it, but we hide it as though it's a joke. But I mean, there was a time when like guys, we were just like hanging out, and then suddenly a certain leader like overheard the conversation. And then they thought that, oh, we are in trouble because like how can you manage people like that?
Right.
And then like there was really like serious talk, and then it's like, oh, could you say such things? And like, and then I think it became quite ugly because all the guys lost fun in it.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, we cannot do this kind of things, we have to be like that, there's like what is a cookie cutter way that we have to act.
Right.
But then at the same time, you can see why some girls might find it over the line. So it's a very interesting dynamics. So I cannot say that you should just let guys do everything they want and be just don't care about the girls. But I guess you just have to be more sensitive as to who is around you and how people might receive that kind of comments.
Yeah.
So that's what I learned. So sometimes it's not just only for the guys. We have to be considerate for the girls. So
Supong's got some heavy trauma. We're hearing everything.
It's not trauma. Actually, behind me, there's a female right now. Like I'm being held at gunpoint. Yeah, I'm being controlled right now.
What about Julius? What about you? What's one thing that you learned like when you're talking to girls?
Well, interesting thing. Australian culture is a lot less direct in general. So kind of like it's a little bit less in your face just generally speaking in the culture in terms of how people communicate. They try to tend to be conscious about the other person's feelings. But most of the time I think well at least yeah, like I would say just with my own sister, tone is very important. Tone is very what you're saying can be right, but the tone really matters. So you have to be it's less about what you said, but how you say things. Yeah.
So tone is a big one. Like, can you give me an example?
Oh, like for example, like oh yeah, like for example, my sister was like coming into the car, and so for some reason sometimes she just doesn't wear a jacket, and then she'll get cold. And so I was like, oh, why do you always not bring a jacket when it's cold? And she got like so upset. She was like,
yeah,
UK, I can do what I want. Like, she got she was like, oh, why are you all up in my face? And then my brother was just like, geez, he's just asking you why you don't bring your jacket. And then and my sister was like, oh, that's not how it sounded like. Yeah. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And then I thought about that. Yeah. So
and like you weren't wrong. It's just it's just the way you said it, right?
Yeah. I was really taken aback by how she reacted.
How would you have, if after that experience, how would you say it again?
At this point, Sky is just bullying.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm just wondering, like,
you're just putting it in a hot spot, man. Like,
once you just realize, how would you say it again?
Hey, Danielle, don't you want to bring your coat? Isn't it cold?
It's not like, what the hell are you doing, man?
Yeah.
What the heck is wrong with you? I remember that's like one of the big things me and my brother always say to each other. It's like, what is wrong with you? And we're like, huh? And he's like, just bring a stupid jacket. Are you crazy? Like, that's how, we talk.
Yeah.
Would that be similar with you guys and your brothers, or like?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, like pretty, yeah. Well, both me and my brother were kind of, except when we're playing against each other, then that's when it's hands off. But in general, we're kind of polite about things because Australia is just like, yeah. Only when we're playing against each other, then we get verbally on the line. But
right. But that's true. No, the tone plays a huge role, and I think that one definitely goes both ways. What about you, Eddie?
Like Koreans text with the squiggly line,
Why?
Oh, at the end of your sentence,
lambda kind of sign.
Yeah.
Like yes, and then they put that squiggly line behind.
to convey your tone. You write a sentence, be like, okay, and then you like do the squiggly thing at the end.
But what is the tone? What does that squiggly line mean?
That's why, Sky, you failed so badly when you communicate with females.
Oh
Because you don't know
gosh,
such things.
this is why I'm alone in Malaysia doing podcasts by myself.
I don't know. You gotta ask the Korean.
Wait, but there's a meaning though. But what we don't, it's a good meaning though.
Right, as in it's to drag the ending consonants so that you sound more like that.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Like, could you get the
more
sweater? I don't know.
Yeah, like
Alright.
more affectionate. It's like less curt.
Yeah.
It's like less to the point. You're kind of
But
dragging.
don't you just like put a smiley face or something on there that makes it?
No, but smiley face can mean sarcastic. When I was texting some guy, or girl, I don't know.
Oh, truth
When
is coming out.
when I say like something and then like I put smiley face and then I got criticized for being sarcastic.
Oh, okay.
It's like, what do you want? Like there's no winning, It's
Yeah.
like
It's not winning, guy.
I know.
like,
Luckily, I'm
then you put
Canadian, so
smiley
everything
face.
I say is sarcastic.
I thought Canadians are like the nicest people in the world. So like,
we're the most sarcastic people in the world. Yeah, we
Also,
are
actually,
very, very
you guys are.
sarcastic.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it goes beyond just tone, and it kind of like how you genuinely communicate with people.
Right.
So maybe I was like really bad at communicating, or maybe I am still, right? So like people assume a certain kind of image that you have. So I think it goes beyond just like one or two texting or like conversations. Probably, yeah, you got to build a good reputation, like a whole Canadian reputation or something like that.
Yeah.
Then people like wouldn't misunderstand you so much. But I don't know.
Andy, what about you?
Well, I mean, I think I want to like preface this by saying like a lot of things that specifically I'm mentioning are like kind of more trying to address like the problems, but like all the guys already said, like there's been so many good things too. Like the only reason why we're bringing it out, even though there are so many good things happening, is because there are certain bottlenecks that we're facing, right? So like when I look back on my experiences with especially with women in Providence, they've been like for the vast majority very good. Like all of the female leaders, they've communicated very well to me. And the one thing that I think I've seen throughout this entire time is like so many of them are really organized, like hyper organized in everything that they do. And I think that's a very important trait to have, just in general for like the necessity of any organization. But sometimes, when all of your conversations are of that kind of nature, it can kind of stifle conversation too. Like, I think we mentioned that guys kind of like to shoot the breeze, like talk about like unnecessary stuff. But the unnecessary stuff is actually kind of important too, sometimes for guys, right? It's like what Supong mentioned with like how the male management was at times, but then someone overheard it and then they were like, oh, we can't, why are you managing people like that sort of thing? But even that conversation is important because it's kind of helping to build that trust. So, but that's kind of an aside. So that's what I've learned from communicating with, really good female leaders. But I think like the biggest takeaway was like, how I think you can notice it even at home, like how your mom communicates with you versus like your dad.
Right.
Yeah, like not to say that all mom and dads are like this, but one thing I've seen commonly while talking to a lot of guys, and just like with my parents too, like my mom, like me being in Hawaii, she tries to contact me like every day or like very frequently, and she calls like over any little thing. Whereas my dad, I could probably go with him this entire 6 months without talking to him once, right? So the kind of communication is kind of different. So yeah, like, there's how we've, communicated with each other in Providence, like with girls, but just at large too in the world, like how that's been too. But one thing that came to mind while like really thinking about this is like, yeah, this isn't to I think what Pastor Sky and whatever mentioned, this isn't to like finger point at girls or anything, but it's kind of to try to see how we can improve certain things. Because one thing that I have seen too is that I forgot who mentioned this, but guys are in general, like they are more open to talking to girls. Like, and there's probably a lot of reasons for that in general. And so I think in a lot of countries, we like even talk about using that to leverage that to evangelize, because I think guys are actually like like even here we joked about like if a girl comes to talk to you, you would like instantly listen, like versus if like a dude walks up to you to talk to you. But there's like goods and bads to that, and like the bad thing that I think we do need to kind of help bring to the light, and also to help girls understand too, is like there's been a lot of things on like YouTube and stuff nowadays where like girls think like a guy was just a friend, but then when like you like call them and you trick them and you ask them like like why you haven't taken things to the next level, the guy who they thought was a friend was actually romantically interested in them, right? So that's something like even in Providence I think we have seen, like a guy will come but then their interest was actually in a girl,
Right.
and sometimes that plays out okay, like it doesn't get too involved, but at other times I've seen like just like with those examples of these videos on YouTube where like these girls in the world, they're like calling their friend, like their best friend who's a guy, who were like, oh, this guy would never hit on me sort of thing, but it turns out they did have those kind of other motives that like that they couldn't see. I think that is something that we have to see too. So even if we want to leverage some of these things, we do have to understand each other very carefully. Like in the instance, like let's say female leaders are helping with male evangelism, which I think can be successfully done too. But we have to understand like, oh, like, but you have to know where these guys in the world, their priorities are at. So not to mix up what kind of things they're showing on the outside. It's like what we mentioned about intentions, about what their intentions might be. So we have to do it in a way where things are done correctly, so there's no issues with our members too.
No, that's a really good point. I think there, like everything that we are talking about right now, we're very, very open and honest. And these are probably things that only guys talk amongst themselves, but we're doing it in the open kind of thing. But I think one thing that everyone has to recognize is it is a serious problem. Like the amount of guys we have, it is serious. Like it's bad where we just don't have enough guys. And like Julius was saying, even when he first came, is like, why are there so few guys? Right. And when you look at like when I look at some podcasts over YouTube, this is not just here in this history. Like even Christianity is the same. There's not enough guys. Like a bunch of different places, it's the guys that are kind of losing confidence and the guys that are losing their a lot in when it comes to religion, they're losing their faith. And I think it's an important topic. Like we kind of joke around with it a bit, but I think it's important that we understand it. Like this is a serious topic that we got to overcome, or else, just the guys we already have right now may not even, either lose interest, lose fire, or they're not going to be running anymore. We might even lose them altogether. So I do think, as I joke around a lot, but in my head, I'm just like, this is such a serious topic. It's so serious. But I'm glad we can
just
do it.
Save yourself.
Say that again?
You just saved yourself. You just saved the whole podcast.
But that's the whole point. I'm here to save myself. I only think about myself. So, I'm a guy.
You should put this clip in the beginning.
Right. No, you should put like, it's okay. I shouldn't say that.
Oh gosh, this is where the guys are all coming out now. This is where the man thoughts are coming out. But we're gonna end this first segment here. Like we've gone for over we're on about an hour and 10 minutes right now, around that time. But I think this would be a good opening segment, and we'll continue this more and more because I think I just think it's really, really important for us to touch these topics and talk about it and allow people to listen to it and discuss it and say, oh, this is true. I never thought about this, or I never understood this better. So this is going to be the end of this first segment. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. And I hope that everyone has an amazing and awesome week, and look forward to another episode of The Man Cave. All right, everyone, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.